Dr. Joy Kong, in the world of peptides, there's just so many to talk about, and people are very interested in it. It's obviously a much more emerging field over the last couple of years. There's one in particular that's intrigued me a lot from a fat loss perspective, a performance perspective, even a muscle building perspective, and that's MOTS-c. And I know our body produces it naturally, like obviously from exercise in many ways, but you've got some experience with this peptide, and I'm curious to talk to you just kind of about the inner workings of it and what it's acting upon and results that you've seen with it.
Yeah, so it's a mitochondrial peptide. Mm-hmm. So we can actually stimulate mitochondria and help with mitochondrial health and helping with energy production. Of course, if you have efficient energy production, which means you can burn through sugar easier and you can burn through fat, then not only you're burning off fat, you're also helping your metabolic health and by helping with insulin sensitivity. So you burn through sugar. So it has been found to be very helpful in diabetes in people with blood sugar issues.
So what's is there an application for people that are maybe not dealing with insulin resistance or not? Is there a performance application? If you're improving mitochondrial function, improving mitochondrial health, are you going to have more overall performance output? Are you going to produce more ATP? Are you seeing anything in the performance spectrum there?
Yeah, definitely more energy production. So more efficient system, enhanced performance, definitely enhanced strength and endurance, and so just overall you are utilizing burning off your fuel more efficiently. So people have seen definitely improved athletic outcome.
And after today's video, I popped a link down below for 25% off Seed's Daily Synbiotic. Look, I experiment on myself. You know that about me. I experiment with peptides. I experiment with things. I am a guinea pig, and that's what this channel is about. But when it comes down to the gut health, I really focus on that. And Seed has probably been the most powerful thing that I have done for my gut health, independent of actually changing my diet. So they utilize a capsule inside of a capsule, super cool technology, and that's a 25% off discount link. Look, I do not promote probiotics much on this channel. The only probiotic that I promote is Seed, because it's the only one that I really think has the strong clinical data behind it to really reinforce it, because most probiotics end up getting destroyed by the gut by the time you consume them. And I'm telling you, I noticed a significant change. Some other members of my family have noticed a significant change, and friends of mine have noticed a significant change. So that link is down below. Top line of the description is 25% off. You're not going to find that discount link many other places. So top line underneath this video.
What's when you're talking about what about from fatty acid oxidation, like any kind of improvements from a fat burning perspective? So if you've got someone that is insulin resistant, obviously you can improve glucose uptake, you can improve mitochondrial function there. What about from a fat loss perspective directly?
Well, that's one thing I think is the most popular to use for, is that it enhances the fat burning, the beta oxidation process. So yeah, people have seen a more rapid weight loss with MOTS-c.
What's when it comes down to fat loss in general, I think let's give kind of a soup to nuts breakdown of what happens with the mitochondria and fat oxidation to begin with. Because I think, we can hear people say, okay, yeah, it's going to help the mitochondria, but how is the mitochondria actually, what is beta oxidation? What's happening there?
Well, it's utilization of, it's the biochemical process of how fat is digested and metabolized. I don't know the exact biochemical pathways, but definitely if you increase the efficiency of that process, then you can grab more fat cells and actually use your fuel much more efficiently, rather than somebody who can't really produce energy from that process easily. Then fat will sit there and then you are still sluggish. So if you can enhance this process, all of a sudden you have weight loss and enhanced energy level.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've seen with MOTS-c that's particularly interesting, and we don't have to get too far in the weeds of this, is how it actually works, how it actually is created. So I read a study earlier this week that was quite interesting. It was, I think it was a Nature Communications study. They had human arm and they had a rodent arm with it. And the human arm was they had subjects do like 4 hours of exercise. They were relatively sedentary people that did 4 hours of exercise. And there was afterwards a 12-fold increase in MOTS-c. And that was one of the first like major indicators of like, okay, this is secreted or created or produced when we exercise, just like GLP-1 is produced when we eat fiber, when we eat protein, et cetera. What was interesting though is, I don't know if you've seen this paper, but on the rodent arm of it, it was really fascinating. They saw like these massive changes in like tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukin 6, like massive reductions. There was even, I think it was like a 21% reduction in obesity when they were feeding them a high-fat diet to try to induce obesity. So there's like a massive just like sort of blockage of basically lipogenesis to begin with. And that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I know there's some other evidence from the performance side. Unfortunately, all rodent model stuff, but I don't know, you might find this interesting. They had, I think it was mice, I don't think it was rats, but they had mice essentially run on a treadmill, control group versus MOTS-c group. MOTS-c group ended up having, of course, improvement on the treadmill that the other group did not. But what was wild was when they cranked them up to try to see what's the maximum intensity that they could push all the way up to a full bore sprint, 100% of the mice that were given the MOTS-c peptide were able to hit 100% capacity, like they were able to sprint. Only 16% of the mice that didn't have the MOTS-c were able to reach that intensity. So I think what that speaks volumes to, and what got me super curious about MOTS-c and interested in wanting to take it, is like you're basically increasing just your energy output. You're making mitochondria more efficient. But the other thing that I'll ramble on about that I'm passionate about this one, it's so interesting, is what they found with MOTS-c was that people that were unhealthy and had a bad diet had a good response with it, but people that had a good diet had an even better outcome with it. And that makes sense when you think about it, because you've already got an efficient mitochondria and you're making it more efficient, and you're like already doing the things that are good for the mitochondria in the first place.
Probably it's easier for MOTS-c to exert its effect because the cells already have the more efficient system to respond.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think so. Because like you've in the world of like myokines and exerkines, I think we've seen like when muscles are put under load or they work, they secrete these things that have benefits throughout the body that cascade throughout the body. But I think we've seen the same thing. Like if you take a trained individual, they're going to actually secrete more of these beneficial like myokines and exerkines in a bout of exercise than someone that's new to exercise. It's just like you're granted this like beautiful gift of more of that. So it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
What are some other peptides that people might want to focus on independent of, say, GLP-1? Because I think that's talked about a lot, but like from just a fat loss, maybe muscle building perspective.
The 5-amino 1-MQ is also a nice one.
I actually haven't heard of that one. What's that one?
Yeah, that's also a mitochondria peptide. It's help enhance mitochondria function, helping with fat loss and performance. So that's the one. It's not used as commonly, but I think it may be gaining popularity. There's another SS31 is another mitochondria peptide. I'm not sure if there's enough studies as far as weight loss, but done for mitochondria health, and that could be very beneficial. And as far as weight loss, tesamorelin is one of my favorites because there's good science demonstrating how it not only help with weight loss, but specifically the visceral fat loss. And that's a really important factor in our overall health, right? Not just reducing the fat, but reducing the kind of fat that's really damaging to health. And then there's good old ipamorelin and CJC 1295 that I always use in conjunction. And together they can produce really good effect for fat loss. And of course, helping with repair of all the body's tissues and rejuvenating process, the growth hormone process, and also help with sleep and etc.
What's the difference between ipamorelin and CJC? Because I know they're almost always used in tandem. And these are ones that it's been a long time since I've really experimented with those and messed around with them. But, I know CJC obviously is a, kind of a growth hormone releasing peptide or stimulates growth hormone production. Is ipamorelin working on that same axis? Or?
Yeah. Probably just slightly different mechanism. I can't remember exactly how differently they work, but definitely in conjunction. That's supposed to be 5 times as powerful as individually used.
That makes sense. And then testosterone, what's sort of the mechanism there? Is that still along the same growth hormone, or is it?
Yeah, it's again a growth hormone releasing peptide. So I like how the mechanism works more than just giving person growth hormone, of course, because growth hormone, when you give somebody growth hormone, is only one isoform of the growth hormone, when there could be over 200 types of isoforms. So if you're bombarding the body with just one type, then you may not be getting the full spectrum of what growth hormone can give you. But if you give growth hormone releasing peptides, then your body will produce its own growth hormones in its own variations, right? In its own array of diversity. And then you can get the full benefit. And you're not going to overshoot because your body is not dumb. Once you assimilate it to a certain point, it will meet a maximum amount. Is basically your pituitary is going to say, well, that's enough. That's all that's good for you. And it's not going to make more, even if it's stimulated.
Is that why a lot of people claim like ephemerolin has helped them significantly with sleep, right? That's one of the reasons I'm interested in it. I definitely want to get back on it because I feel like I've just heard so many people say it's improving sleep. Is it just because the growth hormone pulses are kind of naturally happening when you sleep anyway, and it's just kind of completing that cycle, or what is it about it that's improving?
I don't know the mechanism of how it improves sleep. It may be multiple factors. When you regenerate the body, maybe rejuvenate certain areas of the brain, and is that helping your brain to function more optimally? Yeah,
it's a hard one to figure out. I mean, I haven't really been able to find an answer either. It seems as though like I don't know if growth hormone releases in and of itself will improve sleep, because it's one of those things where is there a feedback there? We're going to have our biggest pulses of growth hormone when we do sleep. So which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Sleep is like an indicator of how our body functions, and it's just not very specific. It's like a wellness indicator.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. What about some of the other ones? I mean, we should touch on them, just like BPC 157. Like any good success with that, and what's sort of the process there?
I love BPC 157 and TB 500, also called TB4. So both of these I actually include in our stem cell treatment because I can give people stem cells that's like an engine for regeneration, but it's like a blast to the body, all these signals. But I may not be specific enough to target different organs. But when I use peptides, such as BPC and BPC 157, TB 500, they can target all these organ systems, specifically the brain, the immune system, the cardiovascular system, the musculoskeletal system, and BPC 157, the digestive system. So all of a sudden, I'm hitting all these organs. So you can kind of liken these two peptides, like if you think of peptides which are very specific, they usually turn on a biological clock, right? Is it one key turning on one clock, and then you unlock this signaling cascade and exerting benefits. But the BPC 157 TB 500 is like a keychain with 50 different keys. You can turn on all these clocks. So it gives, I feel like it's a really big bang for the buck that you can just give these two peptides and you're targeting all these systems. So these two I definitely really are my favorites.
Is there ever a use case, or do you ever use just like pure IGF peptides? I know that's a popular one in the bodybuilding community. One that I haven't messed around with. Like I think it's IGF LR31. Like, is there any like other than people that maybe are just trying to put on muscle mass? I don't know. Like, ever a use case for those in your opinion?
I'm sure it can be beneficial for people, but we have the option of using all these different types, right? So it's a matter of picking what may have the best evidence and with the best safety profile. So it seems like the most popular ones for the growth hormone production will be ipamorelin, CJC 1295, and then tesamorelin. Those would be what I would prefer because of that. There's the evidence and the safety profile is favorable.
Yeah, a little more global too in terms of like where you're looking, like potential downstream effects versus IGF seems pretty like isolated. I think like again, it's IGF LR31 that's mainly used like for muscle building. And it just seems like that's I'd say kind of risky from possibly a cancer perspective and things like that. I mean, who knows, right? But it just seems like it's also very, very isolated. And then you get down into these shorter peptide like IGF-DES was popular, 15, 20 years ago, and I'm starting to see it now coming back. It's funny, there's like these waves I remember just in the bodybuilding community 15 years ago, 20 years ago, some of these peptides, and they were like all fringe bodybuilder things. And then now they're coming into like, it's like, it's kind of, we always laugh at like the bodybuilders have always, and I'm not a bodybuilder, I'm just saying like,
you look like one.
I don't really want to look like one, but I want to look like an athlete, but I had my bodybuilding phase. But the point is that they, we always had joked that like they're always willing to like test and experiment. So many of these things that were the almost bro science-y back in the bodybuilding days, like now you start to see, you're like, oh, well, these are actually kind of vetted out. They were right, and they're willing to kind of test that. So you see, like I remember when IGF-DES was just big, it was just like that was something that people would use, and I think it was like site injection, and it was. And then just kind of disappeared, and then now all of a sudden I'm seeing people starting to talk about it again, and it's kind of funny how that works.
Yeah, yeah.
What about with the skin or kind of anti-aging of the skin? Any peptides that are seeming to show some benefit there?
Yeah, well, GHK copper is the quintessential skin regeneration peptide. So I actually put it in a cream I created, but people use it topically. You can also just do subcutaneous injection. It will have all these skin benefiting properties, and and also to help with wound healing, right? So it's not just to make skin more, produce more collagens and become more supple and healthier, but also help with skin repair. But it's great for your brain health and for various organs. So GHK copper, that will be, I think, the quintessential one.
Yeah.
But I would assume anything that has growth hormone component to it is going to help with skin regeneration, since it help with production, right? The usefulness of all our organs.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Found that I've taken GHK CU, and my body hair started growing like crazy. And I know that there is a benefit from
hair growth.
Yeah. And I didn't understand what was going on. Cause I was just within a week, I was just like,
really?
I had shot some like YouTube thumbnails. And usually when I do that, if I'm going to do anything shirtless or anything like that, I shave down and it usually takes like a month for like a good amount of hair to grow back. And then I was taking the GHK for me, I was taking it for just injuries, because I was taking GHK, BPC, and TB500, because I know GHK has some effect on the collagen portion of just kind of the healing. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I was just like within a week of it was, so I'm like, this is doing something. And it was like, I didn't understand. I didn't know that there was a effect on follicles as well.
Oh, so yeah, definitely for hair restoration that can be used topically or injected.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just be known. That's
awesome. The body is amazing. The body does really interesting things. I think it's stimulating, activating the body is really important. Including in our treatments. Let's say for hair restoration, of course you can use copper and all that, but you want to do microneedling. You want to do some kind of agitation. Yeah. A funny story was one of a doctor friend. She had a dog that had autoimmune disease and lost all his hair. So when she took the dog for a walk one day next to a ledge, so the dog was walking on the ledge, along the ocean, and it fell off the edge. And when it fell off, it scraped a part of the body, like a side of the body. And then it turns out that that part that got scraped had all the hair grew back. So that's just a really good manifestation of if you activate the body can do pretty amazing things.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's obviously it's almost analogous to exercise, right? Like you're activating, you're stimulating a change, you're giving an impetus to actually do something. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, peptides in tandem with, sometimes peptides are that impetus, right? Like sometimes it's a kickstart that people need, or the body needs to do something, right? It's there needs to be a stimulus of some kind, and sometimes that stimulus is a positive feedback loop too, where you start something like, oh, you know what? Actually, yeah, mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, different things, including like infrared sauna. Supposedly that also increased the MOTS-c production,
which would make sense because again, you're stressing the mitochondria to a certain degree where it's going to. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. And there was an interesting study. I think this one was also a rodent model, but it was MOTS-c and effect on myostatin, which was wild because in rodents there was a 40% decrease in myostatin when they administered MOTS-c. And what that kind of led me to in the research was that, like, if you look at something like follistatin, for example, like gene therapy, Yeah, it definitely can, will inhibit myostatin, but there's a different kind of inhibition of myostatin that occurs when it's kind of a healthy way from the mitochondria, which is interesting. I didn't realize the mitochondria, that like your myostatin wasn't just like set at birth, like it's not set like this is your maximum amount of genetic muscle building potential. I used to think it was like that, but it turns out that the mitochondria, especially when it produces MOTS-c, sort of has a natural like partial inhibition of myostatin to accommodate growth, right? To accommodate that, which is pretty wild. And something like follistatin, although interesting, doesn't protect against what, in this particular case, I think the words they used were like obese or diet-induced obesity-related atrophy, right? So it was like when someone is obese or they're very overweight and they have all these adipokines and different things that are secreted that are causing a problem and potentially causing atrophy. MOTS-c inhibited myostatin in a way that it actually protected against atrophy, whereas something like follistatin doesn't protect against atrophy. Follistatin would protect against or allow you to build more, right? Kind of like a Belgian blue cow kind of follistatin thing. So the reason I say that is because like if you look at it from the muscle building perspective of a sauna, people will say, well, how is a sauna going to build muscle? Okay, well, yeah, you can build muscle because there is a small growth hormone pulse that comes out of it, but I would be more inclined to think it's the mitochondrial health that comes from a sauna that thereby reduces myostatin a little bit and allows for more muscle building potential. It's a little bit of a leap, but I think it's more practical than some of the growth hormone answers that I've gotten on sauna and muscle growth.
Yeah.
Slight digression, but
that's so nice to know. That's something as pleasant as a sauna, right? It's not as hard as exercise.
Depends how you sit in a sauna. It doesn't always have to be pleasant, but my sauna is rather unpleasant.
Oh, okay.
I rigged it to get to like 240 degrees, so it's not exactly the most fun sauna.
Wow.
My wife never wants to go in it. She's like, no, that's just a torture device. Well, Dr. Kong, where can everyone find you?
My clinic is called Tower Health. It's in Los Angeles, but the best way to just get in touch with me is through my website, joykongmd.com, and or on YouTube. So I do post videos and podcasts regularly, and people can always make a comment and get in touch with me.
Perfect. Right on. Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.